Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good. I got back from New Jersey on Monday night, and I brought a cold home with me. Yeah, I tested, and I am COVID negative, so I don't have that. Although today is October 4th, I believe. So at 2:20, we had the test of the emergency broadcast system on all of our cell phones.
I did hear it.
And it activated the microchip that they installed with my COVID vaccine. So
okay.
Now I've got this craving for brains. So we'll see how this turns out, how it destroys our society.
Now, can we get a little bit more specific here? What kind of brains are you? I'm not a real aficionado of brains.
I mean,
are there certain?
Yeah, I want to eat human brains.
Human seems to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, but apparently that makes you sick. I've learned that in some various zombie movies that, or like, post-apocalyptic movies where brains have prions that live in them.
Okay.
And like if you eat human brains, you're guaranteed to get some version of mad cow disease. Because we have.
Is that like a real?
I don't know.
I mean, so here's the thing: is because a lot of people eat organ meats, and a lot of times it's brain from. I mean, there is some brain from cows and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not human brain, but I'm just wondering. That's interesting.
I remember multiple movies about dystopian futures, post-apocalyptic nightmare worlds, blah blah blah.
Yeah, eat everything but the brain.
Where people go cannibal and they end up getting sick and going crazy because they're eating brains, and brains have.
All right, we're just need to get Hannibal Lecter on the podcast for next.
Yeah, but he's a fictional character. He's
really got
real slow at responding to email.
You're just gonna pop my balloon right there. Just boom. Oh,
you watched Hannibal on the TV show,
that
right?
Was such
one of the best
good
TV
show.
Shows of all time.
I couldn't believe that
really
was. I couldn't believe that was on regular TV.
NBC at 10 o'clock. Yeah.
I mean, how graphic that was. I couldn't believe. That kind of gave me nightmares at times. It was, but the acting was unbelievable.
Stylistically, the way that it looked. I mean, the
so
clothes
good.
They wore.
So good.
The way the scenes were lit. That was.
I mean, even just the storyline, psychological. It was twists and
best shows of all time. I love that show.
Yeah, I wish they kept that one going.
Yeah, that would have been great. And I wish that it was on long enough, because eventually NBC Universal, I think, bought whoever had, because they couldn't mention Clarice in it because of rights issues, because certain studios had certain rights to some books and not other books.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and eventually I believe NBC Universal bought whoever had the rights to the Silence of the Lambs book. So if it just hung out for another couple seasons, they would have been able to do the whole Silence of the Lambs story over a season of Hannibal. Which would have been
where
amazing.
It got confusing, because you're like, where does this fit in with the other movies, or with the movies?
Yeah. That would have been pretty amazing if they could have done the whole Silence of the Lambs story spread across a season of Hannibal. Yeah, that was a great show.
I mean, look, hey, anybody listening to this podcast, get on it.
Bring it back.
Get on it. So, okay.
Yeah.
How was your trip?
The trip. Okay. So the first day I get up to New York City at 7:45 in the morning, land at LaGuardia. I take the bus into the city. And then I just kind of walk around and hang out for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, my plan was to take it easy the day before the hike, but I still ended up getting 25,000 steps or something ridiculous, just walking all over Manhattan, because I can't not do it.
Yeah.
And
What'd you do? What'd you see?
Let's see. I went. God, I can't even remember. I'm pretty hopped up on Dayquil right now, and it's affecting my memory. I know I spent some time around Macy's Herald Square area, because that's just so centrally located. It's kind of my go-to. I did look into, there is a service in New York called Nap York, where you can rent a little bed in a pod.
Love it.
By the hour to take naps.
Love it. Right up my alley.
So
man.
I thought about doing that. I didn't end up doing it on this trip, but I think in the future it's something that I may do, especially if and it wasn't going to be that, for 5 hours of napping was only going to be $70.
Oh, wow. That's a long nap, though. 5 hours of napping.
I call that a moderate. I mean,
yeah,
you need some time to watch ASMR videos and some time to catch up on Netflix episodes. And
I mean, I'm lucky if I get 5 hours of sleep a night. So that's a long. That's
insane.
Right. I mean, a long nap for me is an hour. So I'm usually back up again in the afternoon. But
I don't consider
regular.
I don't consider it a nap unless I get 2 to 3 hours. That's a nap for me.
Okay.
A cat nap is anything less than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want 2 to 3 hours of actual sleep.
Full Charles nap is 2 to 3 hours. Got it.
Yeah, I want the other people in the house, if there are any, to be able to watch a full movie while I'm asleep.
Interesting measuring stick.
Yeah.
So tell me about the hike.
And then I got my rental car at. I went a little early for my rental car. Got my rental car a little early, then drove to Parsippany. Which, man, there are a lot of terrible drivers in New Jersey, and then they come down here and bring it with them. So that's.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I drove to the Whole Foods in Parsippany, which is very close to my hotel. And I did make a purchase that I'm glad I finally pulled the trigger on, which is a pair of official Apple earbuds with the lightning connector, so that when I'm out all day and my AirPod, I got the new Gen 3 AirPods, and they're awesome. They don't fit my ears quite as well as the original generation did, but they're good. I haven't lost one yet. They haven't fallen out of my ears, but the battery life on them is so much better than my old original AirPods that I bought. But to have a pair that I could stick in my pocket or my fanny pack where I don't need batteries for them at all, I could just plug them directly into the phone. And they were like $15.99 for a pair of those.
Yep.
It's
I
great.
Still use them. I don't use AirPods.
It's great to have as a backup where I never have to, because my plan was like, I'm going to have my battery pack to, I had my original Gen 1 AirPods and my Gen 3. And so when one dies, I'll plug the other one in. And then when that charges up, I was like, no, now I can just keep the old school ones as a backup and use those.
Nice.
So, all right. So the hike starts at 6:45 in the morning. It was about an hour drive from where I was staying. No, maybe less than that, about 45 minutes drive. And it was still fairly dark-ish and fairly cold-ish out. But I was wearing my convertible pants. Oh, I went on a whole thing on our last episode about getting rid of my hiking boots. Glad I didn't do that because everything was so wet up there. There were times where I would have had water up to the ankle of my trail running shoes. Because I had my mid-length boots, I was able to stay dry. So those hiking boots are here to stay. I'm going to keep those forever. I use the Moab 2 mids in Gore-Tex.
Okay.
And they served me well on this trip. I was glad that I had them instead of just my Nova 2 trail runners. There was a lot of water. There was a lot of elevation. There was a lot of elevation. I want to say, I think it was mile 11 or 14 where over 1 mile I went up like 1,300 feet. And it didn't get technical to the point where you like needed gear or anything, but there was some scrambling where you had to like reach up to the rock and like pull yourself up.
Oh,
yeah.
That's no joke, man.
Yeah.
I would not expect them to throw that into a 30-mile trek. Like I could say, all right, a couple of miles, you got a little bit of scrambling to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me, I really want to go back and do my first long distance hike that I ever did was Grandfather Mountain up in North Carolina outside of Banner Elk. And that took me, I want to say 14 hours to do that whole hike. And I hit every peak on Grandfather Mountain and then back down to the trail in my car and gone. Like car door to car door is 14 hours. I was younger when I did that, but I think I was also quite a bit more overweight than I am now. So part of me wants to go do that hike again to kind of test my performance to see, would it be easier now because I'm better shape, or would it be harder because I'm older and my joints have seen a little bit more mileage?
That would be an interesting experiment. I think you should do it.
I think I will. I did start hitting the ibuprofen on this hike every rest area.
Okay.
I took like 3 pills to deal with. For me, it's mostly hip pain that I get. The hips sort of wear out before anything else. I'm lucky. My ankles and my knees tend to hold up. They don't start complaining to me very much, but my hips do get a bit sore on these long hikes. And I made it worse by going with the heavily weighted fanny pack without any shoulder straps. Which I thought would be a good move. Was not a great move. I also didn't drink enough water to I had two 18-ounce bottles that I would refill, cap off at every aid station, and I didn't even finish one of the 18-ounce bottles between aid stations. So either I wasn't, and I'm not a you need to drink more water guy. I tend to think my body's going to tell me when I'm thirsty, and when I'm thirsty, I'll just drink water.
Yeah,
I did try liquid IV. I got the packets because for the sugar, for the salts, for the electrolytes, blah, blah, blah. Hated the taste and didn't drink it at all. So I went through one packet of that and I was like, screw this. I'm going back to just spring water.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I didn't feel like I was having an issue with, at every aid station, God, they had, this was the best food of any of these hikes that I've done.
Okay.
So
details.
They had peanut butter and either strawberry or grape jam sandwiches at every.
Okay.
They had half bananas.
And this is the best food you've had.
Yes, but at the last aid station, here's where it gets good. I think on the last episode I said that the one in Tennessee had Monster Energy drinks, but they were hot. Mm-hmm. This one had cold Monster White and Monster Strawberry on ice.
Oh boy.
And hot tomato soup or chili at the last aid station too.
Nice. I'm all about that chili.
I had a bowl of chili and I had a Monster Strawberry at the last aid station. It definitely helped power me through to the end.
Nice.
It was a big help.
How many miles in was that? The last
16 miles in.
Okay, so you did another 4.
I did another 4 after that.
All right.
The chili, I'll be honest, the chili made me fart a lot on those last 4 miles. But, you're outdoors.
Sure.
And I walked so slow that there were not very many people behind me.
I mean, you need something to scare the bears if you don't have a bell on your backpack, right?
Dan, let me tell you what. Oh my gosh. I forgot to mention that on my survey after the event. There was a gal that I guess was afraid of having a close encounter of the bear kind.
Boom.
And so she had a bell on the outside of her backpack. And it was a bell with wind chimes like next to it. So it would like ring every step she took, it would ring. And
well, that's how you know the reindeer are on the roof, right?
God, and this was a woman who it didn't appear to me like she was an avid hiker. I mean, based on the fact that she had the bell and the fact that she had a body type that, like hiking was not her thing. She was trying to get this done. She wanted to get out there and get it done.
Was she going for, did you have a conversation with her by any means or by any chance? Or over here, like, was she going for all 30?
I don't know. We did not have, we had a conversation briefly. I did not mention her bell.
So you did get her number.
I did not get her number.
Oh, I thought you said you had a conversation.
I had a conversation with her.
Okay.
You can talk to women without the express purpose of trying to date them.
Really? Okay.
Interesting
theory.
I read in other books that are not written by Chris Canwell. But yeah, we had a conversation, and she was a slower walker as I am. But
sounds like 2 peas in a pod to me.
All the other conversations I had with other hikers were about her and her bell, pretty much.
All right.
I mean, people were like, there was a lot of conversations like, what is the deal with that lady and her bell?
What's the deal with the bell?
And I tell you, like it got me to increase my pace just so that I wouldn't just constantly hear it, because I mean, you think like, what's the big deal? But it's like
every step, man.
That's the thing. If you
nails
think
on a blackboard. Oh yeah.
Why don't you turn your alarm clock to go on at 11 o'clock at night and just try to sleep through it all night going off? It is.
Yeah.
It was driving me crazy and driving other people crazy too, based on the conversations about it. And again, like I told you, there's almost 1,000 people that do these events.
Yeah, so you got to watch for bears.
Don't have to. No, there's loud people going through the woods. You do not have to worry about bears or boar or alligators
my God.
Anything.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many loud people. I mean, I've not seen a single deer on one of these things. And I've gone in Florida, Tennessee, New Jersey now, you don't see wildlife because there's too many loud people stomping through the woods.
Ugly Americans stomping through the woods.
Yeah, so that drove me crazy just listening to the bell.
Yeah,
but I didn't hear the bell the whole time because either she got too slow, I got too slow,
or a bear ate her. One or the other.
Yeah, and then you hear the bear.
The irony.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be the irony? Yeah.
Like Captain Hook's alligator.
Oh my God! Right.
You hear him come around because of the clock. Yeah, so that was one of the things when they had that situation at Disney World a few years ago where a toddler got eaten by an alligator. And so they responded to it by basically rounding up and killing every alligator on Disney property. And I was like, that seems like a bit of
what does that do?
That's a bit of a overreaction, I would say. Why don't you just feed them all clocks? That'd be more on point with the Disney theme, right?
No. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know, man. It was a grueling my Apple Watch that I did 22 miles because there was one point around mile 11 when I was feeling pretty crappy and I walked for about half a mile. And then I realized, oh no, I need to go to the bathroom. And so then I had to walk back half a mile to the aid station at mile 11.
Yeah, well, okay.
And so that added a mile to the trip. Oh. And so, yeah. And I think I had other hikers tell me that they thought that the estimate and the mile markers were a little bit off because most people finished around the 21, 22 mile. So I planned to do 30, but I just went so slow because number one, I think I was getting sick. I think I caught something on the plane ride up and I was starting to feel the burden of that on the hike. Mm-hmm. And then I had to go back for the bathroom and, the elevation was quite brutal, more than I'm used to. If anybody showed me that plan, that route, on like a smartphone and then the elevation changes and I was just trying to plan like a hiking trip, I've been like, oh, that's a 2-day trip easily. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that in 2 days. I'm not going to try to do that in 1 day.
Yeah.
And, it was a rough one. So I finished the 20 and I got my stupid little medallion that I think I left in the rental car. And when I you check out at the end. So that you don't let them, you don't want the people stuck with the idea that there might be somebody still on the trail, so you got to do your checkout. They're like, okay, do you want your middle name on the certificate? I was like, you can keep the certificate. It's fine. Yeah. It's like, I know I finished. You know I finished. There's a substandard picture of me crossing the finish line. That's good enough. We don't need to worry about it.
I'm glad you got all the boxes checked.
Yeah, so I finished, and then the next day I hung out at my hotel room right until checkout, napping. Then I went to... my heavy fanny pack that I was so tired of carrying by this point. I went to the local Walmart, picked myself up a cardboard box and a roll of tape, put it in the box, taped it up, wrote my address on it, went to the post office, and I sent that fanny pack home. So my flight home, all I had was my phone and my wallet and my car keys and nothing else.
Well, why did you do that?
Because I did not want that heavy freaking fanny pack on my hips anymore. I didn't want to take it through security. I didn't want to have to manage it while I was waiting for my flight. I
didn't realize it was that much work. Oh my God.
Yeah. It doesn't you can't just sit it next to you like a backpack. It doesn't stand up next to your seat. It was just I was tired of having it on me. I didn't want it anymore.
So sick of this thing.
I'm so sick of it. I spent the $14 to mail it back to myself. And I was tired of that. I was tired of looking at the thing.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I just couldn't stand it anymore.
That's probably the funniest part of the story.
So I just sent it home. And then God, driving in and out of New York City is such a pain in the ass. Oh my God. The traffic, the tolls.
Dude, I mean, listen, I'm going to say, I told you so.
You were right.
Flying in Newark or even Philly. Philly's even,
it's
a little bit easier to get into New Jersey. I mean, for years I commuted in and out, and it's just, even on a good day, it's work, man. Mentally, physically, emotionally at times, coming in and out of the city from Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize
when you're doing the driving. Yeah.
The George Washington Bridge. I mean, the tolls in and out of LaGuardia from LaGuardia to New Jersey and back again were like $30 each way.
Oof. Yeah, they've gone up a little bit since
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, like literally $29 each way on just tolls.
Yeah, I remember it was down to like 10 or whatever, and that was expensive at the time. But yeah.
And
Jesus.
yeah, George Washington Bridge is 6 lanes on the lower level, 3 in each direction, and then 6 lanes on the top level. And still like a crawl. I mean, even the times, I did it on Saturday and Monday midday, certainly not rush hour. I mean, it was like 1 o'clock on a Monday, and it was still just absolutely.
I remember, for a few months, I commuted in with a stick and as my car, and it was, my left leg got a workout with that clutch, man. It was not fun. That's when people complain about traffic down here in Orlando.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm like, you guys, we don't have traffic here because stuff keeps moving. Like rarely, like if things are to stand still, in my experience, it's for maybe a couple of minutes. Like up there at all the bridges and tunnels, I mean, it would be like you wouldn't move for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you'd move 5 feet,
right?
And then you stop again, and it was just, man, drive me insane mentally.
and then I had for my last trip to New York, I had thought of, man, this would be really cool to take my RV up to upstate New York, like an hour or two outside of the city.
Okay.
And live up there for like October, November, December. That's my favorite time of year. It'd be great to do upstate New York. And then I thought about taking my camper across the GW.
Oh.
How much of a freaking nightmare that would be.
Yeah. It'd be you only do it like once one way and once the other way. It's,
Yeah, but you still, but I don't think there's any other way to do it to get to upstate. I mean, unless I went like way out to Western New York and came back.
Yeah, no.
I don't know that there's another way to do do it. I mean, that is 95.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it. You go from New Jersey into upstate New York.
Okay, so I could skip going near the city.
Yeah, if you wanted to go up New Jersey and then, just go to the tip of New Jersey. I mean, it'd take you a little bit longer, but it'll be more scenic, too.
Okay.
You definitely,
Yeah, maybe I would consider doing that then. Yeah, because the idea of – because I did see trucks and campers have to take the upper level of the Can't do the only cars.
I would not be going into New York. No, if I'm going to upstate. If I'm in New Jersey, I'm going through New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is something that I'm considering for trying to see if I could pull off next year.
Okay.
I mean, because number one, if airfare remains cheap-ish like it is now, I could definitely come back to Florida every couple weeks and
handle your customers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's something I might think about.
All right.
Because spending time in the city and spending time, upstate, Sleepy Hollow, Irving area was really cool in late September. So I think doing October, November, December up there would be a lot of fun.
Make sure your heat's working.
Yeah, well, I'll have the new heater installed. I may do that this weekend, depending on how my condition improves. Oh, okay. Last thing to say before we start. My friend Megan said she listens to the podcast, and she said that she really enjoyed the refrigerator banter.
Oh, she's like fridge banter, huh?
But it's pretty much over now. So I told her I might have to sabotage your refrigerator just so we have more refrigerator stuff to talk about.
More, yeah.
So I filled one of your ice trays with gasoline, and we'll see.
Oh, nice.
See what that
fingers crossed.
What that leads to.
Fingers crossed on some sort of explosion.
And you ordered me some new keto chow flavors. I get to try pumpkin spice and eggnog.
Yeah,
which I am really excited about.
Are we going with heavy cream or butter with those?
Ooh, good question.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But look, man,
I think I would probably say butter with pumpkin spice and heavy cream with eggnog.
Yep. That would be my choice too.
And now what about with butterscotch? You gotta go with butter for butterscotch, right?
Probably. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Just because
that's one they just introduced, which I will probably order here in the next week.
Yeah.
Because I'll have in the next week I'll get to try eggnog. I'll try pumpkin spice. And then I'll order some butterscotch, assuming I'm going to love it. I do think I'm done with bulk bags, though. I think I'm going to switch to all the individual. It's so much more convenient to store.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But for me, I think I'm going to continue with because I love that peanut butter one flavor the most. And I think that I go through that so quick. So the downside, though, is I'll find excuses to take – I will tend to take little bits of like a half a scoop or a quarter scoop of the peanut butter, and that's kind of messing with my diet a little bit.
Yeah.
Versus if I had it in a packet, I don't want to have to open up the whole packet and then like measure that out, whatever. So, yeah, I might skip the bulk bag of peanut butter as well.
Well, I've got about half a bulk bag of peanut butter you can have if you want it.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I'll trade you some.
I've got
some of the stuff I've got. If you
chocolate toffee, which I like.
Yeah.
I've got peanut butter and salted caramel. Salted caramel is not near as good in bulk as it is in the individual one.
All right.
And some of the people in the Keto Chow group on Facebook have said that, it just doesn't. The bulk bag just doesn't taste as good as the individually wrapped ones, which you can understand that the air and the humidity would, even in a sealed bulk container, it's going to mess with the flavor, where those individually wrapped ones stay completely sealed the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's kind of like with the soda too. Like a can of soda sometimes is much better than the bottled and stuff. So yeah, for sure, I can see that. Yeah,
I'm excited about trying those new flavors though, and I know we've talked about it before, but man, any kind of diet compliance when you're sick is so freaking hard.
Or traveling.
Yeah, traveling or both.
Anything, right. It's all new.
Anything that disrupts.
Yeah, man, your normal habits and routines and environment. Yeah,
so crazy. On days that I just work from home and I don't have a plan to go out and do anything social, I can stick to my shakes, maybe a can of tuna fish or a can of chicken, and make up a real low-calorie chicken salad. It's easy. It's so easy to just stick to it when I don't have other stuff going on.
Yeah. But
the more variation you introduce into your schedule, the harder it is to make sure you get your steps in or make sure you eat the way you want to. And it's like you almost, it's crazy for me because like variety and switching things up is one of my core values that I love in life. Being able to have, every day is a little different. But when it comes to trying to comply with any kind of health goals, it makes it so much harder.
You got to just plan in advance and give yourself a little bit of flexibility too, right? So just maybe don't expect to be compliant with everything, but say, okay, I'm going to be compliant with 2 meals or 1 meal or whatever.
Right.
And then, so at least it's better than not planning anything out at all. And when that happens, you run amok and you're subject to the environment that you're in. And
Okay.
So.
Let's talk. Let's talk about this chapter. Attraction grows in space. The quote is, "Eroticism resides in the ambiguous space between anxiety and fascination." That's a quote by Esther Perel, who is awesome. I love her.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to go too long on this chapter because we've talked a fair amount of space or about space in the last few chapters. Because number one, as I said recently, the necessity for space in your romantic relationships is probably the primary lesson that I've learned from my last relationship. Mm-hmm. And number two, he alludes to it in chapters leading up to this before dedicating a whole chapter to it. I mean, one of the big problems that some of the ladies in these case studies have had with their guy is not enough space. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, have you seen lack of space strangle the attraction in any of your relationships?
No, not at all. Of course. Yeah. And I think I mentioned it too previously. It's especially when I was younger, it was, I would remove my possibility for having space because I'd spend all my time with, my girlfriend, and I would basically like blow off invitations from friends to do things to spend time with my girlfriend. And that, then obviously you kind of lose each other. And you lose your sense of individuality. And yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely guilty of spending too much. And it's enjoyable. So, what I kind of realized is that you need to get uncomfortable if you're going to introduce space, because that's not what you want, right? You get all the dopamine and the oxytocin from spending all that time with that person, especially at the beginning, right? You get that limerence and those great feelings. And so you have to actually get uncomfortable to stop that, take a pause from that, and do something that is less enjoyable, but the value is there because it's going to give you both that time and space. It's going to make things even better when you come back together again. You'll kind of re-energize a little bit of those good feelings again because now you've taken a break from it. It's kind of like drugs. You get basically you just kind of get used to the way drinking or getting high feels, and then it's less impactful by constantly feeding it, where you give your receptors a chance to get a little break from that. When you come back together again, you have a little bit more of that spark, right?
Yeah, and that's where the dopamine. It's a tricky one.
Love it. Love the dopamine. Who doesn't?
I love it, but also, I mean, just seeing what it can do to you and the patterns that it can put you in, because dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's about the anticipation of pleasure.
Right.
And one of the things I've noticed is I would still feel that drive to spend time around my partner and suffocate her a little bit with my presence, even after it stopped being as fun as it was back in the beginning of the relationship.
Okay.
Because dopamine tells you if you're around her, then it's possible that you might be able to recapture that feeling of how things were
Interesting.
back then.
Yeah.
And so even after the point where, being around each other it's not as fun as it was in the beginning, but your brain is tricking you into, you still need to kind of be around her all the time, because then, those good feelings this could be the time that you feel that thing again. So you don't want to risk not feeling that, do you? So you better spend all your time around her, because it might kick in and things might be the way that they were before.
That, and I believe dopamine is involved in helping form, neural pathways in terms of helping you remember things that feel good. Right. So like when we were humans, 10,000 years ago, when we were looking for food and we were out scouring food and we'd find, berries or something with, a little bit of sugar, something that's sweet.
Right.
We needed those calories to survive. It would trigger a dopamine response, and that would help us remember where that berry bush was.
Right.
And make us want to go and find that again.
Yeah.
And so now if you're associating those dopamine hits with, pleasurable experiences with your girlfriend, yeah, your brain is going to be, when you're spending time with her, you're thinking, hey, this is going to be another great experience. And because you're associating your presence with her as, potentially having, and you may not be doing all of those same exciting things that you did at the beginning of the relationship, right, or where those neural pathways got formed, and then potentially it becomes almost like a habit type of situation at that point,
Yeah.
Like I'm spending time with the girlfriend, and therefore that's going to feel good. And yeah. And that's doesn't always remain, and usually fades pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's like the folks that get heavy into drug use talk about, they're not doing the heroin or the crack because it still feels amazing. They're doing it because they're chasing the feeling of what it felt like the first time.
Chasing that high.
They want that. It's that first high that you want to get back.
Yep.
And, I mean, that leads us to both suffocate our partners and stick to relationships that we probably shouldn't be in any longer.
Yeah.
But it felt so good. Those first couple of months, man, they were amazing. And, if her and I just both dedicate ourselves to it, I'm sure we can get that back. And, I'm sure on some level you can get it back if you both work toward it. But part of that working toward it is not just being all up in each other's face 24/7.
Right. It's not continuing those good feelings. It's getting uncomfortable. To basically, the way to do it is to get uncomfortable, break that pattern, right, and give yourself those space. And it's interesting. I had a little bit of a reminder of trying to get uncomfortable in different situations and practicing that discomfort. So I was at the gym the other day, and I'm sure as when you're working out, somebody's like waiting for a machine for you. And sometimes they just like linger, and they're waiting for your machine, but they won't say anything. Other times they'll ask you, "Oh, how much time you got left, or how many reps you got left?" And I've found in the past, I would not take as much time in between my sets when somebody is waiting. When I know somebody's waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is, if I'm following a protocol, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing this many reps and this much rest in between my sets. And when I was younger, I would sacrifice that, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to inconvenience this other person, so I'm going to mess with my whole workout protocol because I want to let them have the machine sooner rather than later. And this was like, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I said, nope, I'm going to let myself feel uncomfortable and practice feeling uncomfortable. So I stood there and I'm like, no, I'm going to honor my stopwatch, and I'm not going to start my exercise again until I'm ready to go. And I mean, I wasn't great. I didn't want to look at the guy. I kind of turned my back because I still was like uncomfortable, but it was just uncomfortable enough to wait. The funny thing was when I turned back around, he wasn't even looking. He was off and, doing his own thing. He could give a crap about how long I was taking, to be honest with you. And so I was like, look at my head messing with me.
How, just curious, how long were you resting between sets?
It was 3 minutes. I had one set left and he had asked me about 30 seconds into my 3-minute rest. So it was only 2.5 minutes I needed to, and then do like 8 more reps. And it was it. It wasn't anything crazy, It wasn't like, he asked me and I had like 5 sets. So yeah. And I found myself fighting the urge to hop on the machine a little bit earlier. I mean, at probably a minute in, 30 seconds in. Yeah. But I waited the whole thing. I got uncomfortable and I was like, nope, I'm gonna practice feeling uncomfortable. And the way I look at it is the more I can do those little things of getting uncomfortable in situations. Like I was telling you the other day, I was waiting online at the airport and I think I was texting you or whatever. And people were like, the people in front of me had like walked and left a big gap.
Yeah.
And I purposely didn't close that gap, even though I knew people were behind me. They didn't say anything, but I felt uncomfortable leaving that gap there, and I let that happen for like just a minute. That little thing was so uncomfortable, but it helped me kind of fight that urge, and my theory is that's going to help me kind of wake up and feel a little bit uncomfortable when it's more important.
Yeah. It's wild to think about how much of our time we spend performing actions that are just really designed to show everybody else, hey, I'm a good member of the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
You can count on me to, I'll do the socially appropriate thing so that we get that,
right.
that feedback, or just we feel like we fit in. We feel like nobody's going to want to kick us out.
Crazy how dominant that is.
It really is. So much of our time is dedicated to doing things that will make other people feel like, oh, he's an okay guy. It's okay to keep him around.
Yep.
And I think the less time we spend doing that, the happier we probably will be.
Ultimately, I believe so.
But yeah, to get used to it is pretty rough. But yeah, so Canwell says in this chapter, when a woman loses attraction for a man, it's usually because the man failed to bring enough space and distance into the relationship. And I think I agree with him. I think he's right. I think the more you want to treat your partner as your mommy, who's always there to give you that sense of ease your anxiety and soothe your anxiety, then the less she's going to feel like a romantic partner, the more she's going to feel like a mommy, and she doesn't want to be your mommy.
Yeah. It's interesting that the concept of bringing space into the relationship kind of falls on the man's shoulders.
Well,
why is that not? I mean, I'm sure there's a logical explanation for that.
Yeah, let's think about that.
Why does not a woman default to doing that too? Because, I
don't know. I think.
How does that work?
I think that's a good question. Yeah. I think it's going to feel natural for the least anxious person in the coupling is going to probably feel.
Good point.
Like they
could be regardless.
Like they want the space.
Yeah.
I mean, look, in my past relationship, my ex, she asked for it. I just didn't feel like giving it to her.
Okay. And so I guess it depends on, because he does talk about the personality types a little bit here, right? Like whether you've got your attachment style.
Yeah.
So maybe it comes based on that rather than that it necessarily falls on the man's shoulders, right? What do we default to based on our attachment style?
I mean, I told you a few weeks ago, I matched with a girl on a dating app that, like the second and third day we were talking, she was already sending me good morning texts. And
the nerve.
I mean, this is before I'd even met her in person. I gave her my phone number, and she's already, texted me, "How's your day going?" and "Good morning." And I was like, after 2 days of that, I was like, I'm out. And I just had to. I was like, look, this isn't going to work out. Wish you the best, and that was it.
Yeah.
And, when when you don't feel like you have, I mean, when you communicate that you don't want any space, that sends a lot of other sub messages along. Like, I don't have a lot of appeal to other potential partners. I don't have a lot going on in my life. I mean, there's a lot of negative messages that you accidentally send when you're sending the message of, no, I don't want any space. No space is what I need.
Yeah.
And there's so many undercurrents of other messages that you're just like, you're putting a lot out there that is unappealing.
Yeah. And
you don't realize it when you're in the middle of doing it.
Right.
But it adds up.
For sure. It shows, I think, a level of, I guess the attitude or the thought process from somebody who does that. It's not most likely going to be based in reality. A lot of times I feel like that is, it could be a little bit, it's they're making assumptions and they are too vested too soon because there's not evidence. Things like you said, you haven't even met her in person yet. And so she's already going to that level. It's like, well, what are you thinking? Like, where's your thought process going here that makes you feel like we are almost married already?
Right. And whether it's somebody you've just met or it's an existing partner, it's when you communicate desperation and scarcity, it lowers your value in their eyes, and they're going to be like, I mean, nobody wants to feel like they're the prize in the relationship.
Yeah.
You think you do, but you don't.
Right. I mean, you want to feel like they
you
care about you, but
right. But you want to feel like
nobody wants to be on a pedestal.
You want to feel like you won the prize, not like you are the prize.
Right. Correct. Yes.
And so, when you're
same thing when guys put a girl on a pedestal.
Right.
Same thing. Like, she's putting you on a pedestal already, and it's like, all right, it's flattering, but at the same time, that's not healthy. It's not going to, induce you to have attraction for her either.
Yeah. The most successful relationships is where I believe both people feel like they're lucky to have found their partner.
Absolutely. I agree with
and
that.
And not like, I'm the hot one, I'm the smart one,
and that
I'm
takes
the rich
time,
one, and they're the one who bagged me.
Right. And that takes time. To figure out, okay, you got to see the person in different environments and different experiences and see how they handle themselves. It's not just a one-dimensional, you wrote a funny profile.
Right.
This is, you've lit up my life now.
Right. And again, that's where the need for space comes in, where space should feel valuable to you. Like, it's like when you're getting space from your partner, you should be like, okay, this is great, because this means that they've got their own interests that they can take pleasure out of and they can enjoy. And I can spend time with my friends. I can spend time, catching up on that show I'm excited about. I can spend time, working on my career or my side hustle. I mean, ideally, space is good for both of you because you both have other things going on besides just the partnership that you're in.
And by having those other things, you bring those things into the relationship.
Right, exactly.
If you don't have the time to do those things, then what value are you then continuing to add into the relationship? You're not.
Yeah, you should constantly be bringing new and exciting things into your relationship that you can share with your partner.
Right.
And not just, like I said, the idea of just two people sitting on their couch, some TV show that they watched a million times playing in the background while you're both screwing around on your phones.
Yeah.
Isn't that
a love language? Isn't that quality time? I thought you defined that as quality time. No,
it is low quality time. And, but that is a lot of people's definition of hell, just where you're stuck in that. A lot of times, and that monotony.
I've been there, and you don't.
It doesn't
really
feel like hell when you're in the middle of it.
But
when you look back on it, or when one partner decides that it's hell, and they kind of come to the conclusion before you do, it's tough though. But sometimes you will look back at a relationship and be like, yeah, the last few months of that relationship, we were not having much fun together. We were mostly just kind of killing time with each other.
Yeah, just like everything else, you got to be intentional with it, right? And talking about planning dates and continuing to do that as well. So do we want to get into the example here?
Yeah, we can quickly go
Case
over
study?
his case study. So there's not a ton to gather from it that we haven't already said, but basically this couple, Jacob and Emily, were married for 7 years. She hits him with an unexpected bombshell of "I want a divorce," which usually I think we've talked about women initiate 70 to 75% of breakups, and in the moment, it feels like a surprise to the guy pretty much every time.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the guy looks back at it, it's like, no, the last 20, 25% of this relationship were not great for either of us. And usually breakups happen for a reason. And the reason is usually the same. The reason is one partner has lost romantic emotional attraction for the other partner. Mm-hmm. One partner has decided that, okay, things are not going to get better. Things aren't going to turn around, and there are better options for me, whether that's being alone or being with somebody else, than just sticking with this relationship as it is. And so that's where Emily in this story has come through. She wanted love. She wanted passion. She wanted to feel alive. And as far as she was concerned, her relationship had become dull and lifeless. And when she asked Jacob for space, he wouldn't give it to her. There's two versions of that. There's the one where you get asked for space and you pretend to be supportive and you pretend to be accommodating for that request, and then you just don't give it to her. And then there's a version where you're like, no, I'm not giving you any space. And I feel guys probably tend to go with option number one if their partner's even brave enough to ask for the space, which many women are not. Yeah, that's hard to ask for.
And that's the thing is when you ask for that, a lot of times that's going to open up a discussion. What do you mean you need space? What does that mean? Are you breaking up with me?
Do you not love me anymore?
Do you not love me anymore? Are you going to date other people? What does that look like? Get detailed, because that's such a vague term, space. What does that mean? Especially if you're living together. How does that work?
Right.
He actually does mention a decent solution there, which is occasionally sleep in different beds.
Yes, I thought that was interesting. And the sleeping in different beds is something that I know a lot of older couples do, sometimes as a result of sleep apnea, sometimes as a result of, some like it hotter, some like it colder. And I think it's tough to get used to sleeping with somebody after you have been living alone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, on one hand, I enjoy I think I've told you before, I may have shared on podcasts, the optimal situation for me, which I don't even have the capacity to live out right now because I live in a camper with a queen size bed. But the optimal situation is a king size bed where there are only two people, obviously. Maybe not so obviously.
Not so obviously these days. No.
People, yeah, I guess there are thruples out there. If you're in a throuple, email me because that sounds wild and I want to hear details.
We will interview you.
Yeah,
we'll invite you to Orlando.
We'll give you a voice changer and we'll put you in shadows if you want, but I'd love to hear the dynamics of that. But anyway, so two people in a bed, a king size bed, no big dogs that take up a lot of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cats can take up a lot of real estate too, but a king size bed, two people where I can roll over on my left or right side, depending on where the door and the TV are. That determines what side of the bed is mine. One side where I can roll over and hug a pillow, or I can roll over the other direction and hug my partner. That's the optimal for me.
Yeah.
But short of that, if one or both of us have queen size beds or smaller, I think my preference would be have sex in one of the beds, and then at the end of the night, I go home to sleep in my own bed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Sleeping in somebody else's bed, man, that is a real challenge.
It can be. And then, there's so many things in terms of how hot do they want it, the temperature of the mattress, what the mattress is made out of, how much heat that keeps.
Does it have springs or foam?
Does it, right. And then, how.
What are the sheets made out of?
What are the sheets made out of? How firm are the pillows? How much blankets or sheets does she like versus what you like? All those things really. I've wrestled with those.
I feel like this is a concern of 40-year-old men, not necessarily younger guys.
No. I'm a little bit of a princess when I'm sleeping. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, but that said, if the sex is good enough and frequent enough, there are a lot of things
that you will put up with. Yeah. Absolutely,
absolutely. I'll sleep on a parking lot next to a dumpster if the sex is good. Not multiple nights in a row, mind you, but just for one night, sure.
One night, what the hell?
Yeah, under a bridge in downtown Los Angeles. I mean, if it's blowing my mind, then we'll do what we have to do.
Chili Peppers have a song about it, so
they were doing a lot of drugs when they were
under the bridge
that.
downtown.
All right, so yeah,
where I got some love.
I think that's enough. I think that's enough on space. But the biggest thing to remember is
give it.
give space, and if your partner is brave enough to ask you for space, don't freak out about it.
Right. And that's the thing too is, it's probably an indication of a problem, but don't blow it up into a bigger problem than it is.
Right.
And, use that as an opportunity to have a conversation and maybe get specific in terms of what does that actually look like when the rubber meets the road in terms of space. Does that mean she's sleeping in the guest room once in a while or, in the kids' room once in a while? Or does it mean, you guys need to get some hobbies outside of what you're currently doing by yourselves? Maybe start working out by yourself instead of together or whatever that is. And I think by having those conversations and figuring out, okay, what does that actually mean? That'll probably relieve a lot of that anxiety thinking, oh, she doesn't love me anymore.
Yeah.
The fact is that she's not saying, hey, I want a divorce.
Right.
She's going, I want space. That in and of itself shows, I feel like she cares enough
right.
to try something to fix something. Right.
Yeah, and I would say, boy, if you want to take on and handle that anxiety, it's like we said in a recent episode. The guys in the military who were the special operators that would initiate violence would deal with less PTSD than the guys that would just randomly have violence happen to them. Mm-hmm. If you want to deal with space in your relationship with as little anxiety as possible, you be the one that broaches the conversation. You be the one that says, hey, I'm listening to this wacky podcast by these two guys in Orlando, and I'm just curious, do you feel like we've got enough space in our relationship? And if you're the one to bring it up, then if she says, actually that's something that I was hoping we could talk about, I do feel a little stuffy in this relationship, you will feel far less anxiety than when she, drops it on you like, hey, there's something I wanted to mention to you. I think we might need a little more space in our relationship. The first option will feel a lot easier to handle than the second option. But in either case, if she is the one that brings it up, you may need to immediately go into that. Okay, let's take a half hour. I need to go for a walk. I need to let my initial adrenaline response calm down before I can have a talk with you about bringing some space into our relationship. Because I know on the multiple occasions my partner brought it up, it set me to 10 pretty quick.
Yeah. So, and then I think if you're going to have the discussion, be prepared to get granular. And it sounds almost, a little bit cold or robotic, but figure out, okay, what does that look like in terms of what are you going to do? What is she going to do? And then what are the ground rules?
Right.
Like,
no, I agree.
Can you only do this? Can you only be with guys, or could it be like a mixed crowd of whatever you're doing? Or if you're doing it within a group, right?
From another standpoint of like, okay, so you want some space. How many breakfasts should we eat together per week? How many times should we have dinner together per week? How many date nights should we have? How many TV nights should we have?
I mean, you could absolutely do all that too.
I think you should do that too.
Absolutely.
I would say, yeah. Like when I'm out there engaging in my own stuff, is it cool if I hang out with, friends that are guys, friends that are girls?
Yeah, it's important. So
friends that maybe I used to hook up with, are you cool with them being in my social circle?
Right.
Or
yeah.
So much?
Right. Spill it out so that somebody's less likely to make assumptions based on information that they don't have. Right. And then, are you guys going to come back and talk about that? And, and say like, what did you, is that an expectation? All right. You did your girls' night. I did my guys' night. Maybe one person might be expecting, oh yeah, we're going to say everything that we did and I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to expect you to. No. Plan that out in advance so that you can come back and if anything, I mean, use that as maybe a date night. It'd be great. So now you guys have something extra to talk about on your date night. Maybe you can discuss what you did, on your own, in your own space, and she did within her own space, like during a meal. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, there's things, there's new things being introduced. And look, I haven't done this. This is all coming from my brain or whatever, and thinking this is a great idea, at least, on paper. So we'll see if anybody's done that, please let us know, write us, and
do as we strive to do, not just as we do. Right.
Yeah.
The you do need to have some of those conversations, because the last thing you want to do, Jacob and Emily, if Emily's like, instead of asking for the divorce, if she's like, hey, I need some more space, and Jacob's like, okay, cool. And then, next week, Jacob's like, hey, remember my ex-girlfriend Sally? I had sex with her this week because you wanted space, remember?
Right. Yeah. We were on a break.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you could see, we talked about that too, right? It's an indicator, like she wanted space. He didn't give it to her. She didn't ask for a divorce right away. She asked for space first.
Right.
And so, hey, yeah, she's acknowledging like things need to change up, but don't take it to that extreme where it's like, oh my God, yeah, you're asking for space. There, things, the world's crumbling type of thing.
Yeah.
Which a lot of us will tend to do.
Yeah. Which is, a reminder from, 3% Man, which I revisited recently by Coach Corey Wayne. One of the things that he says that resonates with me, and I know that, every guy gets to pretty much have their own definition of masculinity and what it means to them, and I'm fine with that. But the one thing that he says that resonates with me is masculinity is calm. And the version of it that I want to embody, at least, is there's an undercurrent of calmness where when someone brings something to you that's upsetting, part of your job as a man, as I define it, is you got to keep things calm. You don't get to just freak out and have emotional outbursts whenever something unexpected happens to you. Your job, what you're bringing to the table in whatever relationship you're in, again, as I define it for myself, is calmness.
Yeah, you can't really appropriately assess a situation if your emotions are running wild anyway. So to really, you could, but it's going to be a lot more challenging.
Yeah, one of the Facebook groups you and I are a member of in the Orlando area, somebody said, what are some questions that you ask potential partners to try to get to know them better, understand their nature? And one girl's contribution was asking your partner how they handle big emotions when they arise.
That's a great answer.
That's a good question to ask somebody.
Not a lot of us think about that. I think.
And and there's a lot of wrong answers to that. Like, oh, I don't have big emotions. I control my emotions. I mean, when somebody says something like that, it's like
interesting. Okay,
red sirens and red lights going off, not just red flags.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a topic that we, the kind of books you and I read talks about a lot is, feelings, thoughts, emotions, in the moment. They're meant to be observed, not to be 100% trusted. You don't just by default believe your feelings, believe your emotions, and believe your thoughts. You observe them first. I would say label them, and then evaluate what they mean and what they're trying to tell you. Not just believe them and go through 100%. Bust through the door.
Yeah.
So okay, cool. That's we got through another chapter on space and. Yeah, I would encourage guys to not be afraid of it. Space in your partnership is your friend. It's not an enemy that you need to fight against.
Well said.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I hope you don't get sick.
Thanks. Me too.
All right. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.